I've used such pretty eyes. I want the light to catch it. Look more this way. Chin up a little.
Get thee behind me, Satan.
The film we're going to be watching this week is The Master, a 2011 film by Paul Thomas Anderson that follows Freddie Quell, played by Joaquin Phoenix, who struggles to find stability in a post-World War II America. Freddie then comes across Lancaster Dodd, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, and Dodd's new religious/philosophical movement called The Cause. Freddie latches on to The Cause and begins his journey with the movement and with Dodd.
No. Would you like to be told what to do?
No?
Is your behavior erratic?
No.
Even though Paul Thomas Anderson has made it clear that The Master is not explicitly about Scientology and its founder L. Ron Hubbard, when watching the film there is an undeniable connection. Firstly, I'd like to begin with a brief history of L. Ron Hubbard and a brief explanation of some of Scientology's beliefs and practices. I can't explain all of it because we'd be here all day and it wouldn't even make that much sense anyway, but I'll do my best to get the basics across. And then I'll connect it with The Master. L. Ron Hubbard was born in 1911. In the 1930s, he would become a prolific pulp fiction writer. He would write a bit of every genre, but he was mostly drawn to science fiction and fantasy. In the science fiction worlds he created in his writings, he would begin to lay out the foundational ideas of Scientology. He was a Navy officer in World War II and he commanded 2 ships, but was removed from both ships after a brief period of time. After he returned from the war, he would write the self-help book called Dianetics. Dianetics became the launching pad of Scientology. To begin to explain Dianetics, I found a video from the official Scientology YouTube channel, which will set the stage for us.
Do you know someone who has never fully recovered from a serious loss in life? Or a traumatic experience? And in your own day-to-day life, do you sometimes experience self-doubts, negative thoughts, unreasonable fears, upsets, or irrational behavior? The painful experiences of our past clearly have an effect upon our present behavior. But to what degree and why? What causes the mind to depart from rational thought or behavior? That is the subject of Dianetics.
So Dianetics claims that everything that has ever happened to us and everything we have ever experienced form a time track, which is a chronological log of our entire existence. And for Scientology, that isn't just one lifetime. We are made up of souls that are billions of years old, and our souls will continue on after we die. We store the information from the time track in one of 2 places. Firstly, there's the analytical mind, which thinks, remembers, and calculates almost like a computer. And then, anything painful or traumatic is stored in the reactive mind. Whatever is stored in the reactive mind causes your fears, insecurities, negative thoughts and feelings, and impulsive and irrational behaviors. Dianetics claims that we've been creating our time track for our entire existence, even before we were born. Therefore, we've been storing things in our reactive mind since before we can even remember. Scientology engages in practices that attempt to clear the reactive mind and achieve a state of non-reactivity. Many of these practices we see a version of in The Master. A major practice of Scientology is called auditing. In auditing, a person called an auditor asks a subject a series of questions while the subject is connected to an e-meter, which utilizes some of the same components as a polygraph test. When the auditor asks the subject a question that triggers a reaction, it will supposedly show up on the e-meter. The goal of auditing is to talk about your personal traumas and problems until no reaction is shown on the e-meter. If you want to learn more about the auditing process and the master, the YouTube channel Nerdwriter has a really interesting video, and he goes much more in depth than I am. The film shows a number of different practices also used in Scientology that I won't go into, but while you're watching the film, just keep in mind that everything they do within the film is to make someone non-reactive to their trauma. This leads us into the film. In the film, Freddie Quell is unstable, aggressive, and often impulsive in his decisions. He self-medicates with moonshine to keep himself numb. The film suggests he's struggling with PTSD from his time in the war. At the beginning of the film, he gets psychiatric help, which doesn't seem to work. An important note here is that Scientologists don't believe in psychiatry. Freddie is hyper-reactive to every situation he's put into. When Freddie comes across the cause, he finds momentary solace, but ultimately he continues to be restless and reckless. If we look at Freddie through the views of the cause, he isn't just battling the trauma of the war or the trauma of his childhood, which causes him to make reckless decisions before the war, but he is fighting the demons of every past life he's ever lived, and if he doesn't resolve this trauma through their practices, he will never stop fighting the demons in any lifetime to come. Paul Thomas Anderson uses Scientology and the cause to take on a different perspective of trauma. We see Freddie struggle with his trauma. We see him trying to use the cause to escape his pain, but we see how it doesn't work. We see how sometimes trying to fight the reaction of pain and trauma isn't enough. To end this video, I'd like to touch on Paul Thomas Anderson's relationship to Scientology. In the film, it often feels like he treads lightly, and he has adamantly denied the connection between the film and the cult. And that could be because Scientology's most important member was in one of his films.
You are here for me to enlighten you, to edify you, to send you off into the now not so unknown future. So come along with me. How to fake like you are nice and caring. No,
You directed Tom Cruise in Magnolia, one of your previous films. He is, of course, a very famous Scientologist. Have you shown him this film?
Do you know the answer to this?
You know I do.
All right, then don't ask.